What's up, Matt?
Hey, bub. I got to figure out how to get this glare off my glasses.
I got the same thing because I have a light sitting next to me.
I think it's my computer. So
Yeah,
if I tip them down like that, I kind of look weird, but it gets the glare going.
if you keep them down like that, it looks like 3 a.m. after being out on St. Pat's Day all day.
Yeah, it's like just got back from my lunch with Lumbermen's liquid lunch with Lumbermen's.
Yeah, where's that at?
Actually, I was going to have lunch with my mother, who's in a assisted living, and they're supposed to have green beer. She said it's from 11 to 2, so I got over there and they said no, it's 4:30.
Did you
So,
did you see the thing I put out the other day? I was going to show you. I was walking into Chicago on Tuesday. I actually saw it. There was still this left over. The river was still green from
really?
doing it. So they did it on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And you know where they get that green dye from, right? They they literally, it's plumbers use it for discovering cracks or leaks in pipe. It's like a food dye. So
Yeah.
I think my brother-in-law is a plumber. He told me some local union actually does it for the city, where they just go through and put it all out there.
There's a place here locally called the Whitewater Center. It's for like the Olympics training center. It's got rapids and all that kind of stuff, and they turn it all green for St. Patty's Day too. So we're gonna go check that out.
Thanks, Joe. Joe says green looks good on me. Thank you, Joe. I'm just pulling a few things up here. I'm going to try to share one screen with you here. I may have Nick have to help me on it.
Jory.
There's Jory putting it up there. And I just want to see we're live. So I want to go to that link on my LinkedIn here to actually pull it up, which shows that we're live, but it's not showing on my LinkedIn.
So I'm going to go with the drunken lumberman look and have my tip my glasses up so they don't reflect into the screen.
There, I got it now up. Okay, perfect. Let me just.
That's pretty cool. Is that a river that runs through the city?
So yeah, that's looking north off of Monroe, or Monroe may be the one up there. This may be one street south, and it goes up, and there's bridges all the way through Chicago. So you're looking straight north, toward River North, and as you get up to where that skyscraper is under construction, the river goes back east toward the lake, where there's a lock to get boats in and out, and then the rest of it goes down the Chicago River to the Illinois River. But they dye the whole river up and down, and this is the remnants of it 2 or 3 days later. It's kind of cool.
Now, I wonder how much dye that takes to dye a whole river.
Man, I got to tell you, since that's Tuesday's picture, so that's almost 4 days later. It looks like a lot. There's some cool overhead views of them doing it. So yeah.
Hey, Steve, welcome from Kansas City.
Kansas City. Okay, yeah, Kansas City. So Matt, you got a bunch of cool stuff we want to talk about today. Everybody, welcome to to Lunch with Lumbermen with Matt Lehman from Lehman's Lumber Guide and Ashley Bungle from Materials Exchange. We're the first, the only, the best B2B digital market exchange, creating transparency and helping buyers and sellers.
When you're the only, you can be the best.
Yeah, we'll be the best. We are the best. I wanted to bring up the monthly, the new residential construction. Talk about that. You wanted to bring up the CCI and the BCI.
Yeah, I got something about the construction data as well. We can kind of touch on that.
Yeah, so let's start up. Thanks. I think the one thing I kind of want to highlight was permits were up pretty relative to January. Housing starts were down slightly, but what the one thing I want to focus on, if we could blow it up slightly, is that chart on the right, the new residential construction. And Greg always, we were chatting before the show. He goes, "Bring this up," and you and Matt talk about it. So here's the thing I'm trying to square up. If you notice, since basically 2020, heck, if you go all the way back to 2017 to 19, our completion rate, the amount of homes we're actually putting under roof, turning the key and people going in, has stayed about, Matt, if I'm just eyeballing this, spitballing it, 1.2 to 1.3 something.
Yeah.
So
That's all we can do.
here's what I want to show people. As the actual permits rise, right? That spread between permits and completions is going out, 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 out. That will have to remedy itself in one way, shape, or form at some time. What people a lot smarter than me tell me, that will probably happen by permits falling.
It'll definitely happen by starts and permits falling.
Yeah.
If you look back, I started. If you remember our very first show this year, our topic was 1.3 completions, 1.9 million starts.
Yep.
And we've been talking about it since the beginning of the year, and now everybody's finally they can see it. But it's no different today. Actually, it's worse today than it was in January. The completion to sales ratio, when it's at its full point, is about 98%. And right now it's at 74%. That's the lowest it's been ever. So that means that builders are starting and only completing 3 out of every 4 homes that they begin, or if they're on an annualized basis. We're going to end up with 500,000 homes incomplete at the end of the year. And the other thing that we know, that the builders told us at the beginning of the year what they're going to do. They said they were going to blow it out of the first quarter with starts. They're going to spend the rest of the year on completions. So they told us this was going to happen. So we can expect that housing starts and housing permits are going to fall and completions are going to rise. And my estimation is we're going to be able to spend a little more time on completions. I think we'll probably settle around 1.5 for the two of them as a median. But it's not just lumber, but we've been doing 1.2 to 1.3 completions. And that's all the pipeline of supply from bathtubs, light fixtures, doorknobs, screen doors, windows. That's all there is to do. I mean, we even if you got enough lumber to do 1.7 million or 1.8 million, there's not enough of everything else to complete it. So
yeah,
that's all we're going to do.
That's a good point, Matt. I mean, something's got to give on this. When I look at this chart, it's shocking how that spread just keeps widening, right? And hey, unless we can hire a whole bunch of people to put things under roof and mend the supply chain and create more production of, you said, widgets, bathtubs, everything else that goes into a house, then
you know who's going to do the completion part of the house? It's the framers.
Agreed. Yeah.
They're not going to be out of work. They're just going to be doing inside work, doing trim and there's all this stuff. But they're going. So right now, if you look around, there's just slabs everywhere and houses that are half done or just framing up. But when the builder tells you what they're going to do, there's no reason to believe that they're not. And if you look at that, the next thing on the consumer confidence index.
So let's bring that up. Let's bring the CCI up, the Consumer Confidence Index.
Or if you could do the builder one first. I mean, the business.
BCI.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look from the beginning of the year to where we are right now, we're just kind of rolling over. The black line is the global builder sentiment, builder confidence index, and the red line is the U.S. confidence index. And we can see that the U.S. confidence in business is still, look how hard that thing has gone up. And that all the way back to the left is 2008. So you can see the big decline, the big spike up. And then we just had a huge fall like last year. And then the big spike up was where we are right now. Not last year, but I think I might have been 14 now. I can't see the numbers, but
so the big fall down was 2000 and 2010, right? I believe 2010, the big one.
That was after the 2008.
Okay, that was the 2008 where we went from 2 million permits down to about 3, right?
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing to look at. Just forget all the stuff that the stuff in the past. Just look at this big long line going up of business confidence, and it's certainly rolled over, but it's still way on the bullish side of where we've ever been. And if you listen to TV, they talk about all the time, like it's almost like somebody's trying to sell you that the economy is good. And despite that, you look and say, well, business confidence is rolling over. It looks like businesses aren't as confident as they should be. Now look at the next chart that shows consumer confidence. bam.
Yeah.
Consumer confidence is in the sewer. So what the consumers are telling us is, I'm not going to be buying like I was last year. My outlook for myself is, and what I expect out of the economy is lower than what the businesses think. The businesses are lagging, still building inventory, and the conversations in the lumber business that we hear every day is how, well, what about supply? What about the supply chain? What about transportation? What about the production curtailment in Canada? Those are all big song and dance stories that lag the market. But the consumer's telling you that they're already pulling back. They have been pulling back for a while. So there's no reason for us to expect that we're going to have a continued housing boom through the end of this year with housing completions at 75%, 74% of starts, and consumers saying they're already rejecting price, or they're telling you that they're going to. So
Yeah. It's
you don't,
interesting.
you don't need to be a rocket scientist to look at this graphs and say small businesses or large businesses are more bullish than their customers are.
Yeah, man, it's interesting when you're at that 100 kegger party and it's 5 a.m. when you're in college. You think it's going to last until the next day, but everybody goes home eventually, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we had this conversation about how much money we injected in, and then you add COVID to it, where it really kicked off everybody moving to single family homes and all that. Well, so interesting article reading over the weekend in the Tribune about people that had moved out to these bigger houses away from the city, now realizing they bit off more than they wanted to chew, and they want to move back to the city. And
Right.
I thought that was not going to happen. But sooner or later people wake up, they don't need that extra room. They don't need everything. They bought 7 big screen TVs and put high-speed internet throughout their house and have every widget that they need because they've been at home for 2 years. And
Well, if you think about the people that wanted to move into the city were an age group. There are people that want to live in the city, and their desire to live in the city from the next coming age group behind them is still going to be there. It just wasn't one wave of people that wanted to live in the city for 10 years, and they're gone forever. It's a new wave of people that want to live, and even people that have gotten out of the city, they're afraid they're going to get breathed on and killed and die from somebody's breath. Realize that that's not going to happen anymore. They want to go back into the city. They like the nightlife, the glamour and the glitz, and the restaurants and the entertainment and the people, and that hasn't gone away. That's still part of the American culture or worldwide culture, actually.
there was a dude on the train this morning. I probably could have died from his breath, but it wasn't because there was anything viral in it.
He had green beer breath.
Pretty early in the morning too.
Yeah. Morning, buddy.
Well, that's cool. Great charts from Matt. Let's talk a little bit about the lumber market. So I have noticed on the platform it's switching from a lot of bids over the last few weeks to more asks coming in, more customers selling, more mills selling. So you see things loosening up a little bit. I mean, numbers. It's still a lot of transactions. I mentioned on the call yesterday what I have seen over the last 3 or 4 weeks are a lot of parties involved in one trade. And you're in a frothy market sometimes, and you see when a truck shows up at a location, there's 5 bills of lading on there with 5 people that own that truck, right?
Yeah.
But I think we still have good numbers for a short period of time here. I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing it's still transacting. I mean, yesterday on the show, Matt and Greg were talking about the CME being such a disconnect to the downside, and how in some cases they're able to sell, X amount below what the mills were asking last week based on a print number. You're now a $500 discount to cash on some of these back months.
Yeah, but realistically, you got to be, because that's where the market's going.
Right.
I mean, if you let the people that argue that the futures is just price discovery is telling you that futures is not worth in July. A guy told me, he said he's got guys that buying groups that are recommending buying July, and I go, well, if you can't buy July for $500 under cash, I don't think that's a good deal, because I really think there's a very higher than possible likelihood that prices are going to be $500 to be under $1,000 by the summer. And so if you're looking at buying a July contract for August delivery, you got to think about this thing. When it goes up in $100 chunks, it comes down in $100 chunks. And when you got futures expanded limits at $86. We saw last week one day just a limit move and expanded limit move. The market moved $143 in futures in one day, and cash did nothing. So how do you justify that as being price discovery of anything? It's just
so it's interesting. I think we live in this little pig farm, a lot of just lumber futures. But a buddy sent me over an article this morning about the volatility and the cost to trade all commodities right now, right? And the leverage it takes to trade all commodities, and what historically was a very low margin trade, is still trading commodities can still be a low margin trade, but it takes more to facilitate and bankroll that trade now based on.
Yeah, your margins are what, like $7,000 just to put a trade on. Yeah. So it used to be the kind of rule of thumb for when I was trading back before I lost all my money doing it, was you get up $10,000, you could open up an account and you could trade on it for 6 months before you lost it all. Now you open up a $10,000 account, you got a $7,000 margin, and if it goes against you one day, you got a $7,000 margin call.
So I think it was Greg could tell me when I was a kid and I wanted to trade lumber futures, I think what he told me was, give me the $10,000, and in 2 months I'll give you 5,000 of it back, and you'll be a successful commodities trader.
That's right. Mine is this: get $10,000, give it to your spouse or your significant other, and just come back in 6 months and remind her of what she bought with that $10,000. You're still out the same 10 grand. At least you got something happy to turn your face to.
So true, man. That's the speculative side of things. So look, I wanted to ask you, your groups that you meet with, where are you at on that? Tell me a little bit about that. What's happening there?
We're starting something new. I'm going to start this thing called the Inner Circle, because what I've realized is we did our groups last year. I was going to do it for a year, but I just realized I didn't have enough material to do it for a year, so I just shortened it to 3 months. But what I missed was the execution, the actual participation and execution of the trades in the market. You need to experience the full cycle of a year, because May's not like November and September's not like January. So we go through these different cycles. There's about 4 different cycles with probably 8 forecasted decision points through the year. So I'm going to start a group called the Inner Circle. We're going to start that the 1st of May, I think is when that is. We're taking registrations now. That's for members only. So I kind of want you, the reason is I want you to be at least vaguely familiar with the lingo and how I talk and what Layman's Lumber Guide is all about. But what we're going to do is on a weekly basis in this small group concept is go over just like specifically, what should your trade be? How should you be positioned? Should you be reducing inventory, building inventory? What time frame? We're going to talk about the specifics of it rather than generalities. And the goal is to make people be better lumber buyers. It's more for buyers than anybody else. But if you're a lumber buyer of any sort at all and you want to improve your skills, I highly recommend that you do it. It's going to be I don't know if I'll be able to do it once or twice before I retire, or maybe I have so much fun doing it I don't want to retire. I just keep on doing it.
Look, man, you let me sit in a couple of those, and honestly, I was shocked when I saw some of the level of people on there that I'm like, wow, I'm like Spicoli for Fast Times at Richmond High. I know that dude, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I knew a lot of those people in there, and I'm like, some pretty big movers and shakers, and some people that own their own companies that their input is so amazing, right? I mean, when you have an owner of a company that has been in it for a couple generations, 2 or 3, and they have a successful company, there's a reason for that. It's because they see a lot of things that other people don't see. And you had a lot of those people in your inner circle, which
that's who those people are. It's not the big chain yards, and I mean there's some multi-yard people in there, but the Home Depots and the Lowe's and those kind of guys don't really, they got their own deal. They want to do what they want to do.
Although they benefit from being in it too.
They would, but the thing that it gives the people that are in there the edge to be able to compete with them because they're not.
Right.
So that's kind of, there's a bit of exclusivity in the small numbers that we have right now. I think we have about 500 readers, but it's about 350 companies. So it's really still very small. We don't have a lot of overlap. So it's kind of a lot of exclusivity. I'm still available to everybody. And it's just like I wrote today, it's exciting to see when people take advantage of the suggestions that we make, based it on the forecasted decision points, and they just start raking in profits. But it's disappointing on the other hand when there are people that are just kind of riding the bench and watching and said, yeah, I saw that. That's what you said. Like one guy sent me an email yesterday and he says, looks like you might be onto something here with this Southern Pine market. And I said, what do you mean might be onto something? You've been reading me for 20 years and now you just think I might be onto something. So I kind of hate that just people sit there and watch and don't participate. So this is going to be a firsthand experience of live, real-time experiencing and buying and just getting the experience. It's like loading a shotgun and pulling the trigger instead of just holding it in your hand.
No doubt. Well, I wouldn't mind bringing up. You had something cool under market analysis from Monday, March 14th, and then I wanted to bring up the 12-month forecast and the 2x4 from that one. You're talking about a Russian lumber sanctions on the table. So interesting thing this morning. We've got some vessels unloading up in the Northeast of some panel products, right? And they've been sitting off the coast waiting to unload because there were some Russian vessels in there unloading steel that they wanted to get them in and get them out of there before anything kicked in, right?
Right.
So they basically delayed some of our stuff, but I'm starting to see a few things like that showing up. What are you seeing on the Russian side of the sanction things in our industry?
I think it's all blown out of proportion. I think that there's we talked last year about how with OSB, for example, how there was plenty of OSB. It was just distributed in the wrong hands. Like Home Depot owned half the OSB in the world, it seemed like, and they were the secondary supplier for the market. But once it got distributed around through the cycle, everybody got their hands on it. There was enough. And I think the same is true with softwood lumber supply. I think there's an ample supply when you consider Europe and Russia and Canada and the United States and whoever else we get lumber from. There's plenty to go around. And now we just got barricades between you, saying you can't get it from Russia, you can't ship to Russia. So it's just going to be a redistribution. I call it shuffling the deck the other day. So Europe's going to end up keeping all of its wood because it needs it. I mean, it's going to be shipping less to the U.S. China's going to be getting more from Russia because it's going to be cheaper. Ruble's worth 20 cents on the dollar, and they're in cahoots with each other. No telling how that's going to turn out, but it doesn't look like it's going to be promising for the rest of us. But Russia and China will be in bed together. So Canada's going to have less production, but Canada's going to be more dependent on the U.S. to take their lumber because China's not going to be able to take it. So whatever was going to China is going to be coming to the U.S. And there's all kinds of percentages of estimations about percentages of production, percentages of loss of production, percentage of trade that goes back and forth between everybody. But until you shake it all out and we go through a year of experiencing how it's really going to turn out, I think we're prone to overreact as an industry and over prepare. And I would just encourage, if you look at that chart right there, to remind everybody that those forecasted decision points are time, not price. So typically 2/3 of the time we get a peak around week number 21, which is in May, and a third of the time we get a peak right in here, week number 11, which is March. I think this is going to be a year where the peak is going to be in March, and that rally back in May is going to fall short of where we are now, and then we're going to work lower back into the summer. But I really believe the highs that we're seeing, that we're going to see right in here, are going to be it for the year.
Good thoughts, Matt. Let's real quick shoot over to the one chart I wanted to look at, Southern Yellow Pine. The Southern Yellow Pine chart on page number 4 of your March 10th one, or March 14th issue. And I think that's the feedback I've been getting also on the pine, that there's a lot more of that showing up, and for a couple reasons. There's more mills becoming more productive. And they're able to get more through the system and show up. I mean, we had some people on talking about how much actual production is coming on the South in the last year, and it wasn't very much. But if you take that COVID outlier out of it, and we start getting back to, multiple shifts and more people producing, and we get out of the COVID situation, which I think we're already out of, you're going to see that. I think you're going to see that kind of take off as far as production in Southern Yellow Pine.
Well, here's the overlooked obvious about the Southern Yellow Pine market. How many times are you going to rebuild a deck or a fence or a swing set?
Yeah.
Treated lumber sales this year are going to be significantly less than they were the last 2 years. Lowe's knows it. Home Depots know it. The treaters know it. So they're participating less. Their inventories are lower. Their daily and weekly turns are lower. There's going to be less treated lumber bought this year, consumed this year. So the treaters are the treaters are already in and out. So there's not going to be a treated buildup like we had the last couple of years. It's going to be less than normal, less than average, and the home centers know it. So that's just going to be extra wood. 50% of if 50% of the product goes for Southern Pine goes into treated, there's going to be plenty of it around. The only thing that's still in tight supply is 2x12s because of the demand for headers and for I joists and L beams and LVLs and that kind of thing is still just for structural purposes. But 2x4s or 2x10 are going to be in trouble for a while.
So that's interesting. We always think of some interesting things when you start talking. Intuitively, it makes sense to me over the last year, especially, but 2 years, that people put more fences up I was on a podcast the other day with a guy talking about how he put a fence up last year and it was expensive, right? I'm like, okay, well, expensive relative to what? If it's the only fence you ever put up, right? So,
right.
But the point is, you're right. I mean, if everybody's already done their projects and they're getting out of the house more, I mean, look at walking around the city right now. People are coming back to work, and I don't care what people say about COVID. The people still come to offices, and they aren't antiquated, and people still get stuff done in large environments with human beings conversating with other human beings. So the more time people are away from home, the less they're going to spend on their home, right?
Yeah, and I think another thing that's very important is, especially with what's going on with Ukraine and Russia right now, people are being introspective, realizing that, do I really need a new lawnmower, or would I rather spend some time at home with my kids at the beach or around the house or taking a trip? But I think the American consumer is rolling back its desire of being obsessively compulsive about buying things and just accumulating stuff and all those things that were at the port, all that plastic stuff that was at the ports last year that we couldn't get off. It's not going to be as big a demand for it. So I think we're going to see the pressure at the ports is going to loosen up, and pressure for all consumer goods is going to loosen up, but just because of people's desire to want to create more memories rather than more piles of stuff in their garage.
Yeah, no, good point. Good point. Well, Matt, we're up against a half an hour. This was really good. If you want to get a hold of Matt, you can go to his email or go to Layman's Lumber Guide. Sign up. I would say it's if he's got room, it's great to get inside of that inner circle. It's a good group of folks. Come to mxlumber.com, register. We'll get you buying and selling lumber. It's amazing. We've gotten some pretty good sized mills on in the last few weeks here. And it's funny, maybe because they're basically thinking, hey, maybe the phone won't be ringing in as much over the next year or so. So it's good for us to get on this side to get another outlet to sell lumber a lot less expensive than we're currently selling it, right?
Yeah, for all you guys that have always wanted to buy direct from the mill and you couldn't because of credit or because of the kind of business that you were, the exchange is a perfectly good place to get that transaction directly with the mill done without having to pay a broker. Not that I want you to make any money, brokers to make any money, but it's a great place to see mill transactions and mill offerings that you wouldn't normally get a look at. So
yeah, we've got a lot of, me being a broker, we've got a lot of brokers on there that actually, their great thing is they're sitting in a chair or a desk. They used to have to pay Bobby or Susie or Ryan to sell it. They can now put something on here and sell all of those customers without having to basically get the shakedown from everybody else to give them a commission for it, right?
And one of the things I'm going to encourage in my inner circle this year is that everybody become a broker.
That's a great, yeah.
I mean, there's no reason why in your market, wherever you are locally, whatever trim of studs you use, whatever OSB product you use, when the time is right, and we'll advise you when that is, buy an extra truckload and sit there and just wait for your chance to pick up $50 or $100, $1,000 on an extra one or two extra trucks. It's something fun to do. That's low risk, better return than anything else you can do in the market.
So I got a text last week from a guy in Wisconsin said that I bought an extra load of 2330 seconds OSB on your platform. I didn't need it for a multifamily job. I flipped it back on your platform and sold it and made a nice little profit on it.
There you go.
I mean, it's as simple as that, right? I'm not guaranteeing that's what's going to happen because it's volatile markets, but
that's an easy way to do it.
He got paid right away for it and made good money on it, and didn't have
to. You don't have to go find suppliers. You don't have to go find customers. It's all just.
It's like if you want to sell your house and you could go on and click for sale by owner and it actually worked. right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're basically the MLS system for lumber, except we got the bid and ask component and all the freight variables.
Multiple lumber system.
Yeah, we're the MLS, the multiple lumber system.
Good job.
All right, guys. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks everybody for watching. Tomorrow, Friday, we'll put out if we're having a show tomorrow. I think I'm not sure on that one, but we will be doing them all next week, 12 o'clock noon Central Time. We generally have guests. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can reach out to me. It's ashb@mxlumber.com, and you can tell me what your expertise is and what you want to talk about. But Matt, I'll look forward to chatting with you soon, and have a great St. Patrick's Day.
You too. Thanks. Thank you guys for all coming.